Welcome back to For the Mamas Collective Podcast, a space where we believe in the power of connection and shared experiences.
Where you can come as you are and take what you need. Hi, I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jaleesa. We're so thrilled to have you back for our third episode.
This podcast has been a dream for both of us because as moms, we know just how much connection, community, and a space to feel seen and heard really matter.
For the Mamas Collective is all about creating that space, a warm, welcoming environment where mothers from all walks of life can come together to share stories, explore the highs and lows, and celebrate the journey of motherhood. We've had such great conversations so far, and today is no different.
Absolutely. And if you've been here since episode 1, thank you for rocking with us. And if you're new, welcome to the conversation. Today's topic is expectations. We're digging into what motherhood means, but first, let's start things off with our rose and thorn for the week.
All right, Danielle. What's your rose and thorn for this week?
Okay, so my rose this week, it came a little later, but I'm grateful.
Mm-hmm.
The kids had a snow day on Friday, and watching my son Chase just enjoy the snow, it warmed the heart of my inner child because, as you know, just growing up in Chicago and having the snow to play in, like that was always so much fun. And he's my little Georgia Peach, him and Ari, and so he's never got to experience that. Yeah, so it was nice. I'll post some pictures when we post the episode in the threads. Y'all can see his little snow day, his snow angel. Again, we got 2 inches, so not too crazy, but just enough. And my thorn was actually something that started earlier in the week. It's still kind of lingering, and it's just the fact that it's paining me today at the end of the week is bothering me. However, we've been planning this international family vacation, and we finally got the price tag back this week.
Yeah.
Sticker shock, to say the least. I mean, we're a family of 5, but still. And so it just came with some pretty heavy conversations that we had to have, just asking questions, like, what are we willing to sacrifice this year if we do take the trip? Or are there other trips we can take that could be just as meaningful, but maybe not as expensive? And, so our decision is still in limbo, but it was just hard because I was really looking forward to it. And it felt like we got so close, right? Like all the planning was done. It just got to like check out. And then it was like, hold on, pause. And we have to really consider it. So that's been hard, but let me give credit to Trey, like I always do, because his logic swoops in and saves the day.
Yeah.
And he had to remind me just that, like, we weren't having conversations like this with our parents, about 12-day international vacations. And it's, like we might have thought about it as kids, but like our kids have been very much involved in this planning. Like, hey, when we go, what do you want to do? What kind of things do you want to see? What should we get into? And so like the whole family was really excited about it. So to have it on pause right now, while we really try to decide what's going to be best for us, he just had to show me that, like, we're a step further than our parents were, right? Because at least we're having the conversation. We got to the planning. And not to say we won't do it in this lifetime, but we're closer. And even if we don't see it with our kids, because, again, I mean, Marquise is 19. We've got plenty of time with Chase and Ari. But Marquise is an adult. But what we do know for sure, and where I kind of found comfort, was that we've moved the needle. And so for them, they'll likely be able to do this without question for their families, right?
Yes.
So, that was my thorn.
I love it.
Where are you at? How you feeling?
Man, I feel that though, really having to show yourself where you are instead of looking so far ahead and getting too anxious or sad about it. Right. So seeing the picture, zooming out and seeing the bigger picture of it all, that like this is still a beautiful process, even if the outcome has to be a little different.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, Trey. Shout out to Trey.
And in my defense, I'm going to add this in because he's so funny. Everything we do is with a bit of humor. But he looked me straight in my face and he said, Danielle, we can go. It's not a problem. We can go.
Yeah.
But we're not doing nothing else. He said, don't ask for nothing else for the rest of this year. And it was January 7th. And I was like, the rest of the year, we can't do anything.
Right.
And I think we very much pride ourselves on like being able to do what we want when we want to, at least like around town or in our home or with
Yeah.
our, in our space. And so when he said we can't do anything else, I was like, no, my 2025 list is too long. It's the
Yeah.
7th of January. If it would have been like July, October, I'd have been like, oh no, I'm fine for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But January 7th, we just got
Yeah.
started.
Right. I'm like,
You
no, I
know,
can't hear
like,
that. I can't hear
so
that. I
now,
can don't limit me this soon.
listen.
Oh,
So,
I get it. I feel that though. Okay, so either way, whatever y'all choose, it'll be good. I hear you. Cool. Well, my rose and thorn, I think they go together. For me, it's getting back to normal. So, with the holidays past us now, I feel in my body and in my spirit, I can get back into the routine that I told y'all in episode 2 really throw me off. Yes, it throws me off. And I didn't realize how much I needed it. So that's the rose of like
mm,
something I thought was a challenge for me is actually something that is helping me
mm,
get back into the groove of things and allowing myself to integrate some new things. Well, they're not new. It's just routines that, like I said, I'm not always consistent with. I'm trying to bring them back. I like to listen to music and I like to like do calisthenics and dance and get energy out of my body. And I hadn't been doing that for months and months and months. So this past week, I was just getting back into that. I'm brushing my teeth, doing a whole lot of extra stuff, pushing energy out and moving around. So it felt good to get to back to that side of me. And it felt good to have my son in school and we're trying the
mm.
5-day thing, even though he got sick. Oh, it's so funny. He looked at me so crazy. We were on Wednesday, we were like, okay, you got to go to bed early. You have school tomorrow. He looked at me like, girl, what are you talking about? He was like, again? Yes, sir. And then miraculously, hours later, he was too sick to go to school Thursday and Friday. So I don't know what he conjured up, but he surely asked God, don't let me go to school. So asking ye shall receive. So that threw me off a little bit. So that's the thorn of it is I had such high hopes for
Mm,
myself and like I'm gonna be consistent. I'm gonna do these things every day. That was me on Monday. Me by Wednesday was like, okay, whatever we can do is what we'll do.
mm.
Um and getting to a point where I'm okay with that. And I had a random little breakdown moment. I was like, oh, I was actually like got under the covers and was crying because I'm like, I feel like I'm not going to stick to it. I
Yeah.
almost set myself up to not do it. But
Mm,
the crying helped because I was like, okay, girl, it's only 2 days. You have all of next week and whatever else comes behind that life.
yes.
You're gonna be alive, I hope. So just wait, just let this time pass. It's okay. And I think this ties into our topic pretty well because again, I was trying to put myself first. Motherhood came first. And I just had to roll with those punches and it was kind of ugly, but I did some rolling.
Yeah.
And what made me cry was Rob asked me, he was like, "Do you want to go lay down after being at home with Robert all day?" He was like, "Do you want to go lay down?" And I was like, "Yes." And then I just ran to the bed, threw the covers on, and was bawled my eyes out. So I can appreciate that he was like, I see you without having to like force me to cry in front of
Yeah.
him. But so it was nice to be able to just honestly throw the covers on, cry, take a nap. I had a toddler moment. I had to take a nap.
Yeah.
I had to take that nap. Once I woke up, I was like, okay, Robert is getting better. Like it was like a 24-hour bug. So I'm so grateful for that. And I was able to do some things, not necessarily what I thought I would do, but I got stuff done. And that
Mm-hmm.
sense of accomplishment snapped me back into reality. So that's my rose and thorn of the week. So let's get into our topic, exploring our expectations. So let's start though by defining motherhood or maybe even undefining it because we know for each person that word holds different weight, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, totally. Motherhood, it doesn't always mean like a biological or traditional role. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of us kind of have that ingrained in us, but it's more so and often like it's about the nurturing. the guiding, holding space for
Yeah.
growth. And similar to what you just said, right? Like you had a toddler moment, but that growth can be a space for children, for family, for community, and for ourselves.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The expectations tied to motherhood or any caregiving role can be overwhelming, right? And society had these like preset ideas for us, or I would say this, we take on society's preset ideals
Mm.
because we don't have to,
Mhm.
but in large part we do, and we take on those ideas about what it means to be a mom or a nurturer. But I had a question. So, what happens when your experience doesn't fit the mold?
Mm. Whew, all right, right in. Right in. So, this might be a little tricky for me to answer. And I say that because I've been a nurturer since I was, 8 years old. My sister,
Mm.
was born when I was 8, and I like immediately stepped into like helping with her. And it's always been something that comes so natural to me. But I've seen in other women where that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
Where the maternal instinct that some of us take for granted doesn't kick in right away. And I've seen women who don't want it. They don't desire
Mhm.
to have it. I've seen women who do desire to have it but don't know how to find it in themselves,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's really such a deep question, right? Because
Mhm.
at the same time, like, yes, motherhood is about nurture, but I think there's a lot of mothers out there who may not be the most nurturing that are still phenomenal mothers. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Absolutely. There's so many life factors that
Yeah.
keep us from accessing parts of ourselves that are supposed to be natural, quote unquote natural.
Right. That and
Mm.
then I think, like, I don't know, to the point that I just made, right? Like we
Mhm.
have these, what happens when your experience doesn't fit, but like what happens when you don't want it to, right? Like how do we adjust our expectations, when we find ourselves in that role, but we don't want to be.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss for words a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. It's like meeting all these parts of yourself and trying to integrate, and we don't know, and you just don't know how. You know
Yeah.
you're supposed to love this human being. You know you're supposed to do all of these things, all of these supposed tos, but the feeling, like the little girl inside of you might be like, I can't, I don't know what to do with this, with the responsibility of it. And because I think loving and nurturing, it holds responsibility as well. And not all people know how to hold that space, or the sacrifice that comes with, I'm going to have to be on the back burner for a while, or from here or there, and not knowing what that looks like.
And you know what? I just had a crazy thought.
Mm.
Not that it's crazy, but I just thought about this. Because I said, like, it's always come so natural to me, right? And I've
Mhm.
embraced that in every part. But you know a little bit of the struggle that I had, in pregnancy with Ari. And it just hit me that there was a point in the pregnancy where I was doubting the pregnancy itself, right?
Mm.
Like, is this really what I want? And
Mhm.
that was a dark time for me. I was, to keep it real short and sweet, right? But like I was in a state of depression.
Yeah.
I was really, really anxious. And it took for me to have a really bad thought of like, this isn't what I want,
Mm.
to really snap out and be like, no, Danielle, that's not you, right? Like, you
Mhm.
know that this is what you want. And so then I knew I had a bigger problem that I needed to deal with, because
Yeah.
I had to figure out how to get back to who I was at my core. I was having a little
Yeah.
girl. That's
Yeah.
everything I ever wanted. But the fact that
Yeah.
my mind could think I didn't, right? I had to dig deep.
Mhm.
And I think that was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Mm.
Um, but
Yeah, but that's real, right? What you're saying is really coming to reconcile with yourself. Is this something that I don't want? Or are these fears and expectations and other internal factors?
right, just other circumstances playing a
Yes.
role in making me feel like I don't want it, and for how many
Yes.
people is that the case, where it's
Yes.
like you don't even realize that this may be something you really do want, but there are other like really strong factors and forces that are just keeping you from enjoying it to the
Absolutely.
fullest.
Oh, yeah. I know for sure there's women out there,
Yeah.
and for me as a therapist that sees predominantly women and female identifying people, that comes up a lot, whether it's keeping a pregnancy, having to terminate, or infertility issues. You are whatever you experience, you are going to be met with what expectations do I have of myself? And then life shakes that up. Your
Hmm.
circumstances come in, and then you absolutely have to answer that question to some degree. What
Right.
am I willing, to do? It sounds like what you did was, having the insight for yourself, absolutely. But then recognizing, oh, okay, that's not my actual voice. That's not how I really feel. So let me do the work so that by the time this child gets here, we can do it differently. Like you didn't, I'm assuming you didn't give birth in that same state of mind.
No, no, absolutely not. It wasn't, that was a wake up call for me. It
Mm-hmm.
was. And the minute I made the decision to address it, everything changed. I mean, it took time.
Yeah.
But in a matter of weeks, I was feeling better. I was getting back
Mm.
to myself. I was enjoying the pregnancy as I thought I always would, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but yes, I mean, it was hard. And I
Mm.
think if I can ask you a question, right? Like
Yeah.
what what expectations did you have about motherhood
Mm.
that when you became a parent or before you became a parent, right,
Mm.
that maybe shifted over time after you became a parent?
Yeah. So that's actually a good question because as you were talking, I was thinking about becoming a mother. We've both maybe experienced this, like where you plan it and some planned and unplanned experiences. And so for me, Sydney was unplanned. But I, like you, always felt that as a little girl, like, oh, I'm going to be such a great mom. I love playing with baby dolls and like, I just want to be a great mother. And I had a lot of good
Mm-hmm.
examples around me. And, I wanted to love a kid the way my grandmother loved me and my mom and my all the women in my family. When it came though, you don't know how much it changes you. Like the women in my family showed me something that was like unrealistic. I don't even think they know that they look like they were rocking it. Like they were getting it. And it
Yes.
made it look so easy,
Mm-hmm.
or even like that I could challenge that. I think as a little girl, sometimes you have that I could be a better mom. I could do this better. You get in your little attitude and you're like, when I have kids, I'm gonna be better. I don't, not every time, not every moment. I'm not better. I'm not getting it. I'm dropping the ball.
But how many times I find myself doing this a lot, where I sit back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I understand why my mother did what she did, why she said what
Yes.
she said, why she felt the way she felt, like just everything. And I'm like, I get it now.
Yes.
But again, as a kid, none of that made sense. As a
No.
parent,
Yes, it
I
all
get it.
makes sense. Even when you're pregnant, right? And you're like, okay, it'll be this, and I know what to do, and my kid is going to be this. I know some in the world we live in today, so many mothers and parents are like, we're not going to have tablet kids. We're going to do, and I appreciate however anyone wants to raise their child. Mine gonna get on the screen, and they're going to learn from somebody else sometimes because it has
Sometimes.
for my sanity. We do screen time, and I
Hmm.
won't expose how much, but we can say that. But you just want to have this enriching life for your child, and that's a heavy expectation that you could have had the best childhood, and had the greatest experience with your parents and still have the expectation that you have to be better. You have to give your
Mm,
kids something more. Now, this is a really like trendy term. Like, we're going to break generational curses. With Sydney, I didn't know I was doing that. I
hmm.
wasn't, because I was 25 at the end of grad school.
Mm-hmm.
unexpectedly pregnant, and I didn't know what I was doing. All I had with me in my bag was, well, I always wanted to be a mom. I told myself I wanted to have kids at 25 and be in a relationship and have all these things. And then that's the funny thing. When she came, I questioned the whole life that I accepted.
Mm.
Hey, it's okay. I This is what I wanted, so I'm going to do it. And then mentally and emotionally coming out of, in a postpartum state, I'm like, what? This
Yeah.
is what I wanted? I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand this. And as a grandmother, my mama showing up, I'm like, why is it easy for you? That's not easy. Why does this look so easy for everyone else, right? Even seeing you raise MJ, for me, it made me think, okay, I saw Danielle do it. I never saw you struggle. And I was like, I could do it. I could do that. And then I had sitting and I was like, can I? Am I going to be a good enough mother? The expectations I had for myself was, you
Mm.
have to be great, and
Yeah.
you have to be the most excellent at this thing that you have no clue how to do.
Yeah.
Like, why do we expect ourselves to be good at something we have never done? Because
Mm-hmm.
we've spent years daydreaming about it. And
Yeah.
so we think we have a skill set that we actually don't have, because we don't have the reality. We were living in la la land, but when the reality hits, it's different. And then with Robert, I was 32 or 3. I should have I thought to myself, okay, pandemic's coming, can't have my wedding, so let me have this baby. Planned. What was not planned was the severity of my postpartum experience with anxiety. And so then my expectations totally changed. I couldn't have any expectations on myself.
Mm.
Keep him alive, keep yourself alive. That was it. And fortunately for me, Rob stepped in such a way that he had to fill in all those gaps.
Yeah.
And that was a big blow to my ego. And it
Mm.
made the postpartum a little bit more challenging, because why can't I get it together? Why can't my mind and my actions be different? I feel love, but there's so much other stuff that felt inaccessible, I should say. And so that's for me was shifting over time. And with Robert, it was, I again, like I said, last episode, like, I really had to use my voice and ask Rob to show up in a different way that maybe he wasn't expecting either. But I was like, hey, I know I'm the mama, but I need you to find some nurturing. Not that he isn't, but in a way that would cover our children while I
Right.
was unable to cover them. Like, I couldn't do it all. I didn't have enough. And so I had to ask him to have enough for the both of us for a
Mm-hmm.
period of time. And that shifted me.
Yeah. And this is, I think, to your point, this is what we didn't see with our parents,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
What we didn't have the opportunity to see with our grandparents. So it always looked like they did such a good job. And the part that keeps me going is that to our children, it will feel the same way,
Yes.
right? They're not going to remember any of this. And by the time they can remember, when do they start having memories? Like 5?
Mm-hmm.
By the time they can remember, we'll be in a good groove. Because like you said, and then just with every pregnancy being different. Sid was how old when you had Robert?
7.
She was 7.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in a sense. And MJ was 12 when I had Chase. I'm like, I've done this. I've
Right.
got motherhood under my belt. I'm good to go. No, the
Yeah.
times had changed so much that, like, even for you to say watching me with MJ was easier, we didn't have tablets. MJ didn't know what a tablet
Right.
was. MJ watched Saturday morning cartoons, right? Like, he was
Right.
more of us than
Yes.
he is Sydney, Chase, Robert,
Yeah.
Ari, like,
Yeah.
he just was. So that was very different. But then when I had Chase, it rocked my world. I said, whoa,
Yeah.
what's happening? He was a lot like my sister, who, if you
Mm.
know Gabby, she was a challenge.
Yeah.
Um and she always makes jokes. She's like, you did such a good job with me. Like, God saw fit to give you Chase. And I'm like, I probably could have done, with just you,
Yeah.
because what's happening? Marquise made motherhood seem and feel so easy and
Yeah.
natural, and Chase challenged me in ways that I didn't expect.
Yes.
And now I have a little girl, and that journey is is different,
Yeah.
but it's just, I hear you. And I love what you said about the expectations and setting them for yourself. And even being comfortable and in a space and aware enough to where, like, no, I've got to adjust these. I've got to bring them
Mhm.
down. If I'm going to function, at a higher capacity at some point, I've got to offload some stuff now.
Yes.
Um, and that's real, because it's not always easy to
Absolutely.
get there.
Absolutely, right? And you have to be in that. I think it's like you said, having conversations now and realizing, really being the understanding of addressing your emotional state before you can get to anything else, because you're not going to have it all. You're not going to always be organized. You're not always going to be patient or happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's messy about mother, like that's what you can prepare for. Like, oh yes, children are a challenge and they make messes, but no, your emotions are messy. And that was
Mm-hmm.
an unknown of motherhood, and I had very high expectations that mine would not be. I would have it together. I'm a
Yeah.
therapist. I've been doing this. I talk to people about this. My mind is not messy. Girl, yeah, yeah, okay.
Until you're crying in the shower so they
Yeah.
don't hear you, and
Yes.
putting them to bed early so you can cry yourself to sleep, right? Like,
Yes.
it's, you're
Yes.
doing all this, and you're so strong. I'll never forget that. My kids, I talk to MJ about it now, just about what I really went through with Ari's pregnancy and how depressed I
Yeah.
was, and how I started on medication,
Mhm.
right? And I talk to him because he's an adult, because he does motivational speaking, because he
Yes.
talks about mental health, right?
Yes.
So I'm not going to treat him like a child there. But going through that, my children never knew, right? Like, every day I showed up 110% for them still. And it was hard. It was
Mhm.
so hard. But I'm grateful that I was still able to do that in the least. The moments that I
Yeah.
did take for myself, they were needed, they were necessary, but I still found the strength, deep down, to get up and show up. And when I couldn't, and when I needed space, I
Yeah.
had, their father, and I would just say, hey, can you take the boys this weekend? Or,
Mhm.
I had Trey, like, hey, I need help with Chase right now, because I'm not in a space to do it. And just
Yes.
having that support and community around me, um, to give me time and space to get
Yeah.
back to where I needed to be.
Yeah. For sure, right? That's the important piece, I think, of it is if we have to survive the day to day and meet ourselves in unexpected places and having to let go of expectations, that we have support, we have some sense of a community that would allow us to do that so that we can still find the joy in those moments of motherhood.
Yes, yes. And to our listeners, we want to hear from you. So tell us, like, what expectations have you had about motherhood or caregiving, or even about yourself? How have they evolved? Definitely, join us in the conversation on social media. Share your stories if you're comfortable, your roses and thorns. Feel free to message us. You don't have to post it to the comment section, right?
Yeah.
But let's join in on this, and because this all ties into us just building that community together.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And for the listeners out there that are listening to this right now, it might feel a little heavy. Maybe some of our experiences are triggering, and we are very real and raw about speaking about emotions and our emotional experiences, and that's
Mm,
we are not going to shy away from that. And that might make some people uncomfortable to hear anxiety,
yeah.
depression, and sadness and crying. So take a pause. Don't turn the podcast off. Just pause for a second and let yourself reflect. Take some space from that, a little bit if you need to emotionally. Take a breath if you need to, but we're going to pause here and give you all a second, because we are going to keep this conversation flowing. It feels so important. So we're opening this space up now. We're going to keep talking about some things. So as you're reflecting and thinking about this, we'll answer these questions, but I'll throw them out there first. And this may be a good place to pause the podcast and think about it and come back and hear our answers. So, what would happen if we gave ourselves permission to let go of the unrealistic expectations, right? Like that's what we just spoke to. So, what would happen if we gave ourselves permission to let go of the unrealistic expectations? What would it feel like to embrace the imperfection. And we've talked about that a little bit, but I'll hand it back over to you, Danielle, to speak to directly.
Yes. So, and this again, some of this may sound repetitive, but we don't get to choose our journey, right? We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring or how it's going to look. But if you know me, you know that I'm a planner, that I
Mhm.
crave control.
Yeah.
I have to know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
I plan to a T so that I can, prepare for the worst. Things like that. And motherhood has shown me that that's not possible. And it took me 18 years to get comfortable with the fact that there should be a space for me
Yeah.
to release some of those expectations.
Yeah.
And it all started back to Trey, back to giving him credit, but it's a blessing to have him as a partner, because I realize not everybody finds that in life, but he tells me all the time, you're the only one who's holding that expectation, Danielle. The family doesn't
Mm.
expect that of you. I don't
Mhm.
expect that of you.
Mhm.
And it took years. We were probably 4 or 5 years into the relationship before I really heard what he was
Mm.
saying. And it took for me to be at rock bottom in my pregnancy with Ari to understand what he was saying. It
Yeah.
took for me to be physically incapable of
Mm.
doing and meeting some of the expectations that I placed on myself
Mhm.
to realize that the world won't end,
Yeah.
the house won't fall apart,
Yeah.
children are not going to die.
Right,
My
right.
partner's not going to love me any less. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
relationships won't fail when it comes to like friends and family. And I had this aha moment at 34 that
Yeah.
was just awakening. And it was like, oh my gosh, I can be perfectly imperfect. Like, this is
Mm.
amazing. And it's a relief, right? So when you
Yeah.
say what would happen, weight would be lifted off your shoulders,
Yes.
and you would feel like you could breathe again. I mean, that's what happened for me. I can now go to bed with a dish or two in the sink. Okay, let's not
Mm.
push it. I don't want the whole kitchen dirty. But there was a time where I couldn't. So I had to be the last one to go to bed because if somebody went down to the kitchen, I had to do that dish. There were just like little monotonous things that would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And again, nobody else cared but me.
Uh-huh.
And so just being in a space and living now where I can say, like, okay, Danielle, that expectation is a bit much.
Yeah.
Let's loosen the reins, let's let it go. It's fine. And watching that my life still flourishes
Yeah.
it's beautiful. So
I
that was a
like
long
that.
way to say what would happen. It's just the possibilities, right? It could truly be beautiful if we just gave ourselves the space
Yeah.
to let go of some of those unrealistic expectations. Um,
Yeah.
but to you,
Yeah.
let me
Uh-huh.
throw one back at you, right?
Okay.
So, in regards to expectations, are there any expectations that we actually want to keep, right? Because not
Mm.
all expectations are bad. Some
Mhm.
drive us towards growth and healing, right? And I
Yeah.
know we took that pause, and this is a very heavy topic, but my outlook. Overall, motherhood is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So this is one piece, one tiny piece of what it is,
Mhm.
but it's not all bad. Sometimes we set very heavy expectations, right? But what are some
Mhm.
that you would want to keep?
Yeah, right? Like it's all about finding that balance, right, between what serves us and what
Mm-hmm.
weighs us down. And that's a great question because there are plenty of expectations that are good, right? Like can continue to expect greatness from myself. What I remove is the rigidity that or this all or nothing. Either I'm great or not, right?
Mm.
Like you said, either the world is going to crumble, no one loves me, and all this, or I'm great. No, I'm great within the imperfection. And so I can maintain that expectation of myself, probably to some of Rob's chagrin. Like I maintain that I don't have to hold it all. The
Mm.
expectation that we are in a partnership and it is okay for me to tell him I
Yes.
don't have it. If I'm
Mm.
at 20, I need you to be at 80. And if he's at 80, or he's at 20, I can be at 80. So the expectation that this journey is shared. So we're talking about motherhood, but we are also, if y'all haven't caught on, representing for the fathers too, and the
Mm-hmm.
partners and the uncles and the
Mm-hmm.
whomever
The
is
community,
the
whatever your
community.
community looks like, right? If
Yes.
you need it, don't shy away from asking for it.
Yes, so that is an expectation of mine. Rob teases me all the time. He's like, "You do not like to ask your parents for, a favor, or like you're really stressed out. Like, ask your mom to watch the kids." I'm like, "No, they already watching them while we work. I don't want to do that."
Mm,
And so that's an expectation that I can maintain as well, is that I can allow myself to need help. The expectation that others will help me, I will lean into the community is there to lean
mm,
into. I can hold on to that expectation because it's necessary for my survival and joy and happiness. And like you said, like these harder moments, they're just a blip in the joy. And actually, the joy is a little bit sweeter when you see yourself through these hard moments and you do the hard thing. So, like asking for help, or expecting your partner to show up for you when you can't, and knowing that, and expecting myself to push through anything, any emotional barrier I have, so that I can always access the love for my children and for my community. And because when I start to feel like it's inaccessible, I'm not a good, it doesn't feel good to be around me. So I
mm,
have to maintain the expectation that I can push through whatever emotion is showing up and get back to love and joy. And I like even the word embrace in the question. Like, I embrace all of it. And the expectation is that I can embrace it all
mm.
of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent.
There you have it. And,
Yeah.
as we talk about what this space can offer, right, for the Mamas Collective, we hope it's a place where, we're doing it ourselves, but even that our listeners challenge those old narratives, right?
Yeah.
We're going to build some new ones and we're going to grow together. So, whether you're a parent or not, this journey is really just about showing up fully and authentically.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Danielle, I think we rattled people to their bones, to their core. Some people on their knees in their prayer room after this. I think we shaking some things up, and I think
Mm.
that's good. But we can wrap it up. We're not gonna keep y'all. We not. I'm not gonna make y'all be in this little therapeutic bubble. I ain't analyzing anybody, but we really appreciate the time. But as we wrap up today's episode, here's something to take with you for the week. What's one expectation you can release, or one expectation you want to lean into more intentionally? And y'all know my favorite word is intention. So I'm going to repeat that so y'all get it. We invite you all to take this into your week. What's one expectation you can release, or one expectation you want to lean into more intentionally?
Yep. So reflect it, journal if that's your thing, or just sit with it. And remember, you're not alone in figuring this out.
Absolutely. So again, thank y'all for being here with us today. This podcast space, imagine we're just holding this big space for all of these emotions and feelings and thoughts. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, like, comment, share, do all the social media things. We love hearing from you all. We love the comments. Shout out to anyone who's bold and brave enough to leave a comment. We love it. That's such a beautiful way to connect with us. And we want you all to keep connecting with us on social media. And shout out to people who are texting personally and sending sweet little messages or informing us of their reflections. We really love it. And remember, come as you are, take what you need. We hope you did just that.
And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.